So, Mark, to begin at the beginning, first of all, I'd like to hear from you just a thumbnail about the business, what it is, how it works. But I'm particularly interested in why it came to you, why you're the person leading in this field. You have the leading company in the field. Why you? How did the idea occur to you? And why were you the one who succeeded in putting it into practice?
Yeah, while LiquidSpace as a company is now 4 years old from the first wireframes that I did, the kernel of the idea actually happened in the year 2000. And at the time, I was a freshman CEO of a venture-backed startup in Silicon Valley. And I just raised a $15 million Series B round, and the largest economic investment I made as a CEO was the 5-year lease commitment I made for my building in Milpitas. And it came at a time when we were about 15 employees, and here I was trying to contemplate what my space requirements were going to be 5 years from now and rationalize this enormous economic investment I was making. It felt unnatural at the time. It certainly felt very awkward because I had no ability to really understand whether we were going to be 100 people in 5 years or 5,000. And it was uncomfortable to commit the dollars to that. So that mismatch between what my needs were from a real estate standpoint and what the market could give me in terms of a business model was the kernel. It was 6 years later that I actually began to act on the idea.
Fascinating. I'm interested to know how the business world is changing such that your kinds of services are required. What are the changes in the habits of occupancy and the way people work today that brings your offering into play?
There's a quiet revolution that's happening, and it's happening, if we talk about sort of the transformation of work and workplace and real estate as a whole, it's happening both top-down as well as bottom-up. And there's enabling sort of factors that are driving both sides of that. From a top-down standpoint, we had this thing called the global financial crisis in 2008.
I remember it.
Which was an extraordinary period of time when most companies, and I didn't look back on Juniper's sort of stock price and earnings through that period, but most companies suffered mightily through that period. In fact, most companies' CFOs were walking around the building looking for places to improve on OpEx because top-line revenues weren't growing. And at that window of time, 2008, 2009, something came into clear focus in most companies, and it was the gross underutilization of their real estate. So people walking around the cube farms and the office buildings and the campuses looking for cost savings, and suddenly the fact that most desks sit empty much of the time came into view. The idea of using space more efficiently wasn't new at that time, but the driver, the imperative to improve overall earnings per share happened there top down. So that set real estate transformation on a new course. The other phenomenon is bottoms up. And this little thing that also happened around 2008 is a key driver there. We have now, inside the enterprise, an extraordinary consumerization effect happening. Individual employees are choosing the applications that live on this device, and they're choosing the goods and services that support their daily workday. Right? So if I want to get to the airport to head off to a client trip, how do I do it? Well, I tap Uber. Who doesn't, right? If I need to arrange for some assistance on some marketing slides for my customer presentation, I might more likely go to Odesk and hire some talented individual for 2 hours of work rather than wait the 2 weeks that it might take my marketing department to turn that same activity. For my meeting with the client at the end location, I might reach and tap for a real estate marketplace like LiquidSpace rather than asking my travel department to do so. I might spend the night in Airbnb at the end of the day to call it a wrap. So all of those solutions are functions that in the past could be provided by the enterprise. There were departments that owned those activities, whether it was real estate or technology or travel. But now we have individual employees that are making those choices, and more often than not, they don't ask for permission. And so this empowerment of the individual at the hand of these incredibly simple, and in many cases sort of intoxicatingly simple applications, is upending, it's consumerizing enterprise. So those two things that, oh, by the way, happen to happen around the same time, around 2008, have yielded extraordinary companies like Airbnb and Uber, and we're aspiring to be that same analog in the real estate context.
I'd like to go into that just a little bit more deeply, the way that the changes in technology have enabled your business. Yeah. Not just enabling you to take on the role that other people were performing in different marketplaces previously, but to transform the business and the way it works. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Certainly. So, I mean, LiquidSpace is a marketplace, right? That's the business metaphor, model to consider. It has supply and demand. The idea of a marketplace isn't new. In fact, it's probably one of the 2 oldest business models in the world, right? And what a place to be referencing that. So it's not new, right? So, it's not new. But what is new and what has completely changed the arc of marketplaces is digital technology. And marketplace supply-demand business models empowered by mobile and web technology have yielded 3 very different outcomes with regards to marketplaces. Number 1, we're now seeing winner-take-all outcomes. The marketplace of 2,000 years ago was the local bazaar, and my cousin worked there, and its scalability was limited. If I wanted to open another bazaar, it was another piece of real estate, staffing, and the like. But now, in online marketplaces, we tend to see a winner-take-all outcome. And so, name the top sort of transportation marketplace. It's looking like Uber's going to run away with it. Name the top residential real estate sort of transactional vacation marketplace. It looks like Airbnb is going to run away with that. Want to buy a book online? Want to buy shoes online? Who are the players there, right? So they tend toward monopoly because of the scalar aspects. The other new phenomena is the growth rates. Go walk up and down Sand Hill Road and talk to Benchmark Capital or Greylock, one of our investors, or others, and they'll tell you that companies like Airbnb and Uber are the fastest growing startup companies, the fastest growing businesses, bar none, that they have ever seen. So what's different? Well, in these 2 things is different in the business model. Number 1, they grow on network effects. And you guys are the plumbing, of course, for that. Thank you. But they grow on network effects. And so as the flywheel of awareness on the demand side increases, more people talk about it, they share it with their colleagues, it grows faster, and it becomes the place to shop. On the supply side, as the flywheel starts to turn, if you are a supply side participant, this is the marketplace you have to be in. Add in the social aspects and the sharing aspects that these devices can contribute, and you get that. The last piece of the 3, sort of what's different that technology enables, is the end-to-end experience. If you think about old brick and mortar marketplace, I walk to the store, I buy the product, I go off and use it. Think of early generation internet marketplaces. I go online, I book and ship, or I shop and purchase, I should say. But what we now have, and again, this is a key enabler of it, we now have true end-to-end experiences that bridge the digital and the physical world. Uber isn't just a great application, but its digital elements are wonderful. It's radically simple. Shallow architecture, open the app, 1 click, and you're done. It's also an incredible physical experience by all the things you don't have to grieve about, right? They are curating the supply. I don't have to reach for my wallet. So my experience doesn't end with the purchase. It carries through to the physical use of the service. Now, we're doing the same thing in the real estate world. It's not just about finding and procuring a space to work or to meet or to base your new team. It's also about attending to the experience you have in that physical location. And technology can weave into that. In our case, I booked that meeting in New York for Friday at 2 o'clock. The meeting's running long. So I'm in the space. The meeting's running long. I might reach back to that digital companion, LiquidSpace, and extend the meeting. Afterwards, I step back into the digital realm to provide the rating that my colleagues appreciate and the rest of the marketplace thrives on. So.
Cool. You mentioned winner-takes-all strategies, and this is the outcome in many of these marketplaces. Just to put you on the spot, is that what you're aiming for? And where are you in that journey?
Certainly what we're aiming for. And in fact, I think we can't afford not to, because there will be a winner. I think that's based upon the fundamentals now of how these marketplaces can play. The rate that they grow, the intrinsic sort of winner-take-all value of a marketplace being dominant. The best supply will want to be in the best marketplace. The discriminating customer is going to go shop first in the best marketplace. So if we don't grab that mantle, someone else will. So there's that existential terror I live with every day. As we've defined it, we now have, early as we are, we're a couple of clicks behind some of the other company names I've referenced. But we've put ourselves in the lead slot, the best resourced, rapidly becoming the best known, and rapidly, in the markets we serve, in the US and Australia and Canada, the most scale.
Cool. Well, we're rooting for you. Just to put some numbers around this, and I don't want to be indiscreet, but if you could give us a sense of the size of the company at the moment, in terms of the business that's flowing through your platform, but more critically, the size that you see potentially in the marketplace as a whole.
Yeah, so I'll step at it from both ends. Commercial real estate as a marketplace opportunity. Actually, let me back up a further step. What's happening with these marketplaces in most cases is some underutilized or inefficiently utilized asset is being transformed, whether it's a taxi that sits idle too much of the time or a condo, or in our case, the commercial office landscape. So we're attacking TAM opportunity, which is the full sort of physical estate. Commercial office real estate is a $12 trillion asset class in North America alone. It's the second largest expense behind all of you people for every company. Right? So it has enormous ramifications. So the scale potential of this, even if transactional use of space or more flexible use of space only becomes 1 or 2% of how real estate operates, it stands to become potentially the largest marketplace play, bar none. So that's the potential. Where are we? Quite early days. We now operate in over 600 cities or zip codes across the US, Canada, and Australia. We're doing tens of thousands of transactions a month. We're serving over 16,000 companies, but that's just this, right? I wouldn't be insulted if most of you hadn't heard of us. It's a noisy, cluttered market out there. So the potential is enormous. The growth rates are exciting, but it's early days. It's early days.
Right. What gives your company an edge? What's your competitive advantage? What do you expect to be exploiting to make sure that you come out the winner in that contest?
There's two customer camps for us. There are the people that are already working on the go, people that are already leaving work to get work done, whether that's leaving my desk to go down the hall to a conference room, or whether it's moving off site to carry out a piece of work, whether that's close to home or a war room session with a client on the go. So the people that are already working in that way is one category for us. And so for that customer category, they are out looking for solutions. They're either suffering through a client meeting at a Starbucks, or they're going to Google and searching for meeting room in New York City. And we need to be found, right? And when they do try us, it's vital that we win them with two things. Simplicity, right? So that we have to deliver that radical simplicity from an end-to-end standpoint. With Uber, I can open the app and tap the button and the car comes to me. Couldn't be more simple. We have to attend with some more details than that, so our experience may never be as shallow as that, but we have to be a transactional experience that's exponentially better than the way real estate used to be done. Secondly, the actual work experience, because that is our context. We're providing the place where work happens. That work experience that our customers have in the venue that they transacted through LiquidSpace, whether it's for a meeting that lasts an hour, or an agile project team space that lasts for 3 months, or a startup office that lasts for a year. In any of those scenarios, the actual work activity that's conducted will reflect on us. And so the quality of that venue, the curation and the care we put to what shows up in our marketplace is super important. So that's the people already working that way. The other category is the larger percentage of the working populace that whose eyes we want to open to the possibility to take more control and ownership over how and where they work, to politely say no to the cube farm, or to this notion that the employer can prescribe the best space for me. Well, you and I may have gone to the same university, we may have the same job, we may be sitting side by side, working for the same manager, but it's quite likely that the environments that you and I thrive in couldn't be more different. The best workplace for any sort of activity is going to be a function of the task and also the temperament of the individual. And so we're trying to now drive awareness and to inspire the working world to consider choice and to exercise choice. And so that's an awareness game, right? So hold on to and delight the people that are already working this way, and then open new people's eyes and companies' eyes to the efficiency and the opportunity to exercise choice.
I want to go back to the technology question. I mean, you've mentioned already, I think it's well established and everybody would understand that it's the transformation in technology over the last 10, 15 years that's permitted you to come out with this business model. What I'm interested to understand is how you perceive the next 5 years in terms of technology. I mean, you know, this world never stays still. Is it a question of more of the same, faster, more volume, bigger, or are there technological changes coming down the pipe that you think are going to offer you the opportunity to take a next transformational step in your business?
Without question, and it's a constant battle to keep up with what technology can do to enrich a service offering or a product offering. So, you know, fail fast forward, constantly innovating, experimenting. I'd say broadly speaking, what you all as discriminating consumers can expect of services like LiquidSpace is they're just going to get smarter and smarter. I mean, the obvious things will happen. They'll scale. So they'll be in more places. The shelves of our store will be stocked with more and better inventory, serving more use cases. But from a technology standpoint, the invisible thing that's going to be happening is that the application is going to get smarter and smarter. It'll become more and more context aware. The best thing I can do for you as a consumer is to understand all of your history in my store and to leverage that in a useful and benevolent way to speed you to the best outcome as fast as possible. As I mentioned earlier, the best space, the best environment for you to carry out your next work assignment is going to reflect you personally and your task, right? And the more that I can understand that context and pull from the millions of potential places where you might work in our marketplace and show you the one that will be best, that'll be the magic, that you can just trust this application. Now, how does that happen? That's big data, right? That's the algorithms and the data science harnessing all of the information that we're accumulating with every one of those tens of thousands of transactions. So I'd say that's the big thing for us. Of course, there's also going to be platforms and means by which I transact that we haven't fully wrapped our heads around. So we got to stay appraised on that.
You, in common with many of the sort of entrepreneurs of your generation and in your marketplace, let's put it bluntly, you've disrupted the hell out of the market that you're in. In many cases, this is a kind of confrontational situation that people find themselves in. But it strikes me that in your case, there's a quality that you're releasing value for traditional companies that are already that are using the old traditional marketplaces. Yeah. And so in a sense, there's a positive symbiosis between you and the old style companies. Is that a fair reflection of the way it works? Or would it be overly hopeful to imagine that you don't come across people who wish you weren't there?
We certainly will. And in some ways, I think maybe part of the reason why we chose the course that we did, working in symbiosis with the sort of real estate ecosystem, is that I started this company when I was 44, not when I was 21. Right? So I had 20 plus years of experience in that enterprise ecosystem. So when I started LiquidSpace, I knew I wanted to empower the establishment, but also kick its ass and move it down the road toward a more efficient outcome. So along the way of building LiquidSpace, we capitalized and resourced it at the start the usual way. Reid Hoffman invested in us, so we got our Silicon Valley venture capital money. But then in the next round of funding, I went out and drew in Steelcase, the world's largest furniture manufacturer, and I drew in C.B. Richard Ellis, the world's largest real estate service provider. These are some of the people that are being disrupted by our business model. So we wanted them to be stakeholders because in the future, if we're lucky, we're going to change how and where you work. We're going to make it delightfully simple, and you're going to all be more productive. And oh, by the way, your management is all going to be enjoying the fact that you're spending a lot less money on real estate capital, and you're going to get more engaged employees out of it. Right? So I wanted to go and drive that outcome, but there still needs to be settings where work can happen. There still are chairs to be sold. There still are real estate spaces that have to be built and transacted. So we want to, again, kick the butt of those constituents and point their eyes toward where the new places that work will be happening is. And so it was a conscious effort to draw in some of that establishment. Now, there's an uneasy tension there because at C.B. Richard Ellis, for example, they make the vast majority of their revenue doing large block transactions of real estate. And in 2 months' time, I'm going to be announcing the next wave of LiquidSpace, which is the ability to book space for months at a time. So we're not going to be just the meeting that you can buy, but we can be the primary office. We can be the sales office for Juniper, right? Now that starts to strike, and we're disrupting the 10-year lease or the 5-year lease that you might be paying for those 50 sales offices. we're going to give you economic flexibility. No, that's going to start to cut to the establishment. So yeah, there'll be some tension, but we're well-intentioned.
It's going to be an exciting journey to watch, I think. Before we came out, I checked my LiquidSpace app, and I discovered that actually you and I could have had this conversation in any number of places within walking distance, maybe not walking distance, of here, for $30. And we would have got a cup of coffee too. Yeah. But all of these people wouldn't have been able to join us. That would have been a shame. Please join me in thanking Mark for his insights today. Thank you. Thanks.